What's up? Welcome to The Mandatory. Thanks so much for rocking with us for our live of the week. Remember to follow us on our social media channels as well. We're at The Mandatory TKO. If you like the content, make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. And thank you so much for rocking with us. Of course, some big news this week. I know boxing has slowed down a little bit with the big fights, but we got two pretty big fights that were named. And you know what? Before we get into it, though, Bryan, been a busy week for you. I want to touch on this really quickly, though, because you were covering the hell out of international basketball, and you're doing your thing on the post. And of course, Canada even won a medal, and you guys didn't. So, just really quickly, your thoughts on what transpired the past week and all the content that people should probably go check for if they haven't seen it.
Yeah, me and Dexter had the highest rated or most watched interview in the post sports accounts history, which is crazy. Not most viewed video, but most viewed interview. So important distinction. And another one we got is second, and those were after USA lost. And yeah, international basketball is shit. People should follow it. There's more basketball outside of the NBA, outside of college, outside of even the WNBA. EuroLeague is awesome. The NBL in Australia is awesome. Puerto Rico's got a great league. China. And yeah, Canada got their first medal in
Yay.
not international competition, but the World Cup. They didn't have a medal in the Olympics. And I thought that Canada had one of the best defensive ceilings, if not the best defensive ceiling in that entire tournament. And I thought they were a team that could beat the US. I did not bet that game because I was nervous to. And they ended up winning that. And congratulations to Canada. They deserve it because Team USA doesn't take anything seriously but the Olympics and want to act like they're better than everybody else. But the world is really on their heels. And we'll see if LeBron James builds this super team, if he's even healthy enough to play in the Olympics next year. And yeah, there's my basketball rant.
Which is a good one. We had to kind of touch on that really quickly. Bryan hitting some milestones, but there's a big fight coming up, and Devin Haney moving up in weight class. He's going to be taking on Regis Prograis December 9th in the Bay Chase Center, where the Warriors play. Of course, a little basketball connection right there. But this is going to be a fight where Devin Haney is moving up to 140 pounds, and Regis Prograis is the A side in this one. Bryan, your thoughts on this bout, and how do you feel about Regis being the A side in this fight?
I won't spend too much time on this because you're the West Coaster on here, so we got to get your thoughts, and hopefully you're even able to go, if work permits. But listen, this is a huge fight to me. I'm a little surprised it's pay-per-view on the Zone, but I do think that it's pay-per-view worthy to boxing fans. To casual fans, I'm not so sure, but they did. A lot of people that I spoke to who just sort of follow the sport casually have been introduced to Devin Haney recently, right? And the fight with Vasily Lomachenko was a big one, and a lot of people have been hating on him for getting that win since a very debated victory. And Regis Prograis also has a questionable performance in his recent past, beating Danielito Zorrilla, a fight that we both, I believe, had him winning very, very closely.
Yeah.
But if it went the other way, I wouldn't have been totally surprised and wouldn't have thought that it was a bad decision. It was too close to be a robbery, in my opinion. Both of them were. I had those guys winning their respective fights, but a lot of people had Lomachenko winning. That's fine. A lot of people had Zorrilla winning, and that's fine. And I think this is a big fight regardless. The fact that they both have these questionable decisions makes this more interesting, in my opinion. And I did see this. There are odds out in one particular sportsbook, and that is FanDuel. I saw it listed that Regis Prograis is a plus 330 underdog. Devin Haney is a minus 360 favorite, which is a little bit wider than I expected. I think that may level out a little bit, but we'll see. I do think Haney's going to be a distant favorite, though.
That's crazy to me. I think Regis is, listen, if that's the price for an underdog, I'm definitely placing money on that. You talked about it, right? Devin Haney in his last fight against Lomachenko, a lot of people thought Loma got robbed. I thought Devin did enough to get the victory, but not his best performance, and Lomachenko really put it on him. Devin Haney's face after that fight, he took a lot of hits, and we all talk about Devin Haney's defense. His defense wasn't really working against Loma. Great blueprint for a guy like Regis Prograis, who is not only skilled, but he has power. a lot more power than Lomachenko, in my opinion. So I think this is a blockbuster fight for it to be on the Zone pay-per-view. I'm actually not mad about it. I think this is a pay-per-view fight. It's in the Bay Area, which, I'm thinking Devin Haney will probably get a lot of fans because he's an Oakland guy. So it's kind of like a hometown favorite for him. Regis is the A side, but I think a lot of people will come out for Regis as well. But this is a massive fight that we're going to get near the end of the year. And it's just as big as Devin Haney and Lomachenko, in my opinion. And Devin Haney's moving up a weight class. So how is he going to look in this weight class? We've seen what Regis can do in this weight class, but this is going to be the best name that Regis has on his resume. And if Devin Haney, like, regardless if you think that he beat Lomachenko or not, the judges and scorecards said that he did. So he's got that dub in that column, right? But if he ends up having Loma and Regis on his resume, we're all going to need to shut up. Stop hating on him. Like, that's the truth of it. Now, I'm actually leaning towards Regis in this fight. I kind of told Bryan about it earlier.
Really?
I am. I'm leaning toward, and now that I know the odds for it, yes,
you gotta get that number early.
I'm definitely leaning towards Regis. I think people are sleeping on Regis, and I think this is going to be a really good fight. I still think Devin is elite, but when I take a look at that 140-pound division and what Loma did to him, he is beatable. Like, nobody's unbeatable in boxing. And so I think this is going to be an even tougher fight for a guy like Devin Haney, because if he takes hits like that, like how he took against Loma, against Regis might have him on the canvas. And that's just the truth of it. So I think this is going to be a blockbuster fight. I'm hyped for it because, like Bryan said, because both of these guys had questionable performances. And not really Devin, because it's like he was fighting at one point the guy that was pound for pound in Lomachenko. So if he had a tough fight against Loma, like, no surprise for me there. But Regis Prograis against Zorrilla, that's a fight where I'm like, I thought Regis should have got the stoppage against a guy like Zorrilla who does take a lot of hits. And Zorrilla did some work against him. But nonetheless, I think this is a massive fight for Regis. These are the fights that we wanted to see for him. I remember when he signed to DAZN, we were like, why would he do that? Why would he not just sign with Top Rank so he could get all those fights? But now we're getting this blockbuster fight. There was some controversy because it was originally supposed to take place in October 28th, I believe.
Yeah.
But of course, that's the Tyson Fury fight. And, some people don't want to buy 2 pay-per-views, or, some people don't want to stream 2 fights illegally either. It's tough. Right? So they're exactly. I don't know. I don't know anything about that. You know what I'm saying? I buy my pay-per-views.
And if you have comments on Prograis, Haney, or anything else boxing related, please do feel free to drop them. I do want to touch on like 2 other things as it relates to this real quickly. One being that Regis Prograis, this is his biggest fight. I feel like, other than and including potentially Josh Taylor, because that was also the finals of the World Boxing Super Series. But I think Devin Haney will be the biggest name he will have shared the ring with to this point. And I think Prograis is probably second for Haney after Vasily Lomachenko, especially internationally. Domestically, I think, Lomachenko is still more popular than Regis Prograis, but obviously, like, Regis Prograis is more popular here than he is, like, outside of the U.S. And North America in general. But I think with Devin Haney, the thing that I'm interested in knowing, and I want to see what you think about this, is Devin Haney is able to do what Danielito Zorrilla did to Regis Prograis and do it better, because he's better than him in terms of just controlling the fight with his movement, using his range. I think Zorrilla wasn't active enough with his hands.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately what cost him. I think Devin Haney will be more active with his hands. And we saw the body work that he had on Lomachenko. I think that took some effect. I think if he does that to Regis Prograis, I want to see how he's able to handle it. So he has the reach advantage. He has the just boxing advantage overall. Will he be able to withstand the power? So I wonder, do you think he'll be able to take some of the things that Zorrilla did and sort of perfect them so that he has an even bigger advantage against Regis Prograis?
When it comes to outboxing dudes, Devin Haney's going to establish the jab. And if he will do what Zorrilla did better. But at the same time, is this the most power that Devin Haney has ever faced? I think so. It has to be.
I would probably say so, yeah. Because if you're looking at some of the recent guys, like I would say Prograis, one, he's moving up in weight, right?
And that's the thing too. That's a big deal. Like, moving up one weight class is big. So this is Regis's division. Like, he's coming up to this division. So that's why I'm like, I don't know. For some reason I'm leaning towards Regis in this fight.
Haney
I
is
just am.
somebody, and
He's
Haney.
skilled too. Regis is skilled too.
No, yeah, no, you're right. And Haney is also somebody who doesn't, as big as he is, doesn't have a lot of power at lightweight. So then, is he going to be one of these guys like a Terrence Crawford who actually gets stronger as they move up in weight, or is it going to be like it typically is for some guys, where you're stronger like a Manny Pacquiao in lighter weight classes, not when you move up?
You know what I think? I think Shakur will get stronger as he goes up because that's what he's done so far. Because
Yeah,
Shakur is like
I
filling out in his body and he's getting his power. Like he's growing into it.
he's very
I
young
don't
too.
I don't think Devin Haney. I think we're getting the Devin Haney that we're gonna get. Like it's no hit. I'm never that boxing fan that's like I need to see knockouts. I
Me
think
either.
Devin Haney puts on beautiful boxing performances. But I don't think he's gonna be that guy that moves up in weight class like Bud and is knocking out dudes left, right, and center. Let's get to some of these comments. Shout out to Jesus and IMPK13, both friends of the show. IMPK13. What is Prograis' biggest win supposed to be? He lost the Taylor fight. I think he is overrated. I actually think IMPK13, that Taylor fight could have gone either way. And I think his biggest win would be Zepeda.
Yes.
Okay.
Probably easily, for being honest.
Yeah.
Because other than that, I mean, there are some other guys. The thing is, he's knocked out a lot of people that he's fought. The Terry Flanagan win when it happened, I feel like that was a pretty good one.
Yeah, that was a good win.
But I think the problem is promotionally, he just hasn't been able to land these big fights for whatever reason
Yeah.
throughout his career, and that's sort of been the thing. It's like you want to see him in there against some of these guys. Well, it's like, all right, with Devin Haney, you finally have one. With Josh Taylor was one, but that was due to the tournament, and you can't run from people in a tournament, right? Not that he would, but that's sort of the situation that he was in. And correct me if I'm wrong, I believe he was the favorite to win that tournament and ended up losing a very close decision to Josh Taylor in a fight that a lot of people thought was a draw.
It was,
Fight
yeah.
that, and a fight that a bunch of people thought that Regis Prograis would win. So I thought that the Zepeda fight was probably his biggest win to date so far. The Zorrilla performance was a step back, but I feel like we've since learned that there may have been reasons for that. And I think he'll bring it against Devin Haney. I wonder if he's gonna sort of struggle with the movement as he did against Zorrilla, or is he going to just sort of figure some things out? But I believe he's gonna work at it for sure. Like I'm expecting that fight to be a great fight.
I think it's gonna arguably be one of the best fights of the year. Just because
That's my expectation. Yep.
Because you know what Devin's going to bring, you know what Regis is going to bring, and this is going to be a blockbuster fight. Let us know your thoughts. We'll go to one more comment from IMPK13 because Jesus knows our rundown clearly. Just to give you a hint there, Jesus.
We're going to jump to Jesus in a second. Sure.
IMPK13 with another gem. Team Haney would not take the fight if they were not confident that they would win. I think Devin Haney can beat anybody. I think Devin Haney is good enough to beat anybody, but I think Devin Haney is also beatable.
Right. Which is different from saying to in your defense, which is different from saying he would beat anybody, right? Like I don't think he'd be favored to beat Tank, but there's a world where like maybe he can figure that sort of puzzle out. I'm not sure if I would pick him to win that fight though.
Like I mentioned a bunch of guys that I think could beat Devin Haney, but I also think Devin Haney could beat all of those guys. Like that's the thing.
That's
like
the sport.
Yeah, so it's like I think I would take him. I think I would take Tank over him. I would take Shakur over him. I don't
know if I take Shakur over him yet.
I would.
I don't know. I think Shakur though. I actually think that if they did fought, he'd be the betting favorite, and I probably would lean to Shakur on points. But I would think about it a little bit more. Is my point.
You know what? I think it's just because Shakur gets touched less. Sure. And we used to say that Devin Haney got touched less because he was so good defensively. And then we just saw what Loma did to him. And I'm like, Shakur has never had a performance but he's never fought elite competition like that either. So, I mean, let's give Devin Haney some credit there as well. Let's move on to the next topic, of course, unless we want to get to...
Hold on. We got another comment on this one. This is a good one from Sherm Show. Shout out to Sherm Show. Thank you for joining. Haney is quietly, racking up a stronger resume than all of them. And I think that's interesting because when we talked about our pound for pound lists, that was one of the things in Devin Haney's favor where like he's beaten a lot of different guys to this point. And part of that is he got an early start. And I love that he, was a teenager and just started fighting in Mexico.
Yeah.
That's my favorite part of Devin Haney's sort of arc. But I do wonder, like, does that mean a guy like him, is he going to peak early, or is he going to be somebody who we have to reckon with for a long time? We'll find out in the Regis Prograis fight. But I think this Prograis fight is going to be really good. And I hope that Prograis has really learned from his last fight. I think he will. I think Haney will as well. And I'm expecting just a great boxing match that we've had. It's slowed down in recent weeks, but we've had some big fights this year. And I think this is another one.
Yeah, I think this one's massive. Let's go over to a friend of the show, Hustle Man. We all ask for big fights, and when we get them, people like to shit on some fighters. I don't get it. Not shitting on Devin Haney. I'm high on Regis Prograis.
I don't know if he's talking to you or somebody else in the comments either.
I don't know.
I have to clarify. If Hustle Man's coming at you, he should say so.
I mean, I'm a fan of Haney. I just think that at the same time, like, he's beatable, but he could beat all those guys as well. It's kind of like, it's a sport, like you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
And it's
but that's what we want. Things. We should want I don't want a bunch of, flawless boxers in the sport not fighting each other. I want a bunch of dudes where it's like, I could see this person losing. I could see this person losing. See Hustle Man has my back and yours. I want a bunch of guys fighting each other, putting their undefeated records on the line, who have a flaw or two. Every human has flaws. Every fighter has flaws. Even Floyd Mayweather, who retired undefeated, there were a couple flaws in this game that nobody was able to exploit because he was that much better than people. But in a different generation, who knows? Right? Like, I want the best fighting the best. So I'm excited for this fight.
Joseph, Devin is a good boxer. I just can't stand Bill. The father-son relationships are always really entertaining. I think Bill provides entertainment. I mean, like, who would you rather have in your corner? Or who do you think is more entertaining, Bill Haney or Teofimo Lopez Sr.? Because I think Teofimo Lopez Sr. is way more entertaining, I think would be a nice way to put it.
Can I audible and go with Danny Garcia's pops?
Yeah, but I think Danny Garcia's pops is like OG. You know what I mean? He probably has some good stories. Okay, Hustle Man said, I didn't know you were from the Bay, Hustle Man. I'll be at the fight in San Fran, 25-30 minutes away from home.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That's definitely a fight I definitely am going to try to check out.
One more, and then we'll go to our next segment from Sherm's show here. Which fight do we see first, Garcia versus Teo or Haney versus Teo? They're all on a collision course at 140.
I think we see Haney versus Teo first.
The winner hopefully gets Teofimo Lopez next. But then again, Teofimo Lopez is a super WBO champion now, which means he can fight Terrence Crawford and become the mandatory for Terrence Crawford if he wants. But we'll see about that. All right, let's get into the next segment because we're already about 20 minutes in. And this one won't be as long, so we can take some questions to end it also. But Shakur Stevenson was supposed to fight Frank Martin, was reportedly agreeing to fight Frank Martin. And this is a fight that we have been wanting to see. I even would have taken Keyshawn Davis versus Frank Martin because he called him out, but that didn't happen. So it appeared that we were going to get another ESPN PBC crossover, of which we've had. And then all of a sudden the fight fell through. And it was reported yesterday by Mike Coppinger at ESPN that Shakur Stevenson is going to fight Edwin De Los Santos. Shout out to our Dominican fans for the WBC lightweight title, November 16th. Not Frank Martin. And the rumor is that Frank Martin, one, ducked Shakur Stevenson, which he denies. And the other rumor is that Frank Martin's going to fight Gervonta Davis, which is why he's ducking him, which Shakur Stevenson denies because Shakur Stevenson is saying that this is a cover-up on Frank Martin's behalf.
Interesting.
That's not the case. So there's a lot of back and forth going on here.
Well, they're saying they sent him the contract. He saw the contract and was like, no, thanks. That's pretty much, in a nice way, that's pretty much what essentially happened. Now, do I think that Frank Martin is ducking Shakur? Maybe the contract wasn't good. Like, if you think about it, like, what was he offered for that fight? But at the same time, it's like, okay, Frank Martin, 18-0, 16 of those wins coming by way of knockout, coming off a questionable fight where some people could have argued that he lost that fight, although he won by unanimous decision. And Frank Martin, when you take a look at his resume, who's his best guy on his resume?
Ali. It's Ali Rivera.
It would have to be. Yeah. And so Frank Martin at this point, he needs a big fight. And for him to turn down the Shakur Stevenson one, it isn't a bad look. But if he's going to fight Tank, that's a massive fight. Like, I would rather see Frank Martin and Tank, to be honest with you, because I think that's going to be a banger.
I don't. I
You don't want to see that fight?
I would rather see Frank Martin versus Shakur Stevenson. By the way, this Edwin De Los Santos fight for Shakur
It's going to
Stevenson,
be
that's a
good.
fight. That's a fight,
Yeah.
right? Like
I
that.
mean,
Like
he only has
Shakur,
one loss, and that was a split decision.
right? Debatable. And
Yeah.
he's been on a run lately. We'll get to that in a second. But with Frank Martin, I'd rather see him fight Shakur Stevenson because I think he loses to both anyway. Like I think Frank Martin's really good, but that last fight, I'm gonna try the pronunciation. Haratunian against Artem Haratunian. I was in Montreal watching this pissed off because I bet Frank Martin. And Frank Martin did win a unanimous decision, but I thought he probably should have lost that fight. And coming off that and fighting Shakur Stevenson, obviously that would have been tough. I think Frank Martin's really good. And if he's gonna fight Tank, I think that is a big fight. I don't think he's gonna win that fight at all. If that's the case, but that better be the case for him not taking the Shakur Stevenson fight, because otherwise that wouldn't make sense. And Shakur Stevenson, people are pointing out like, hey, how are you calling him a duck when you duck Devin Haney? And Shakur Stevenson always says 75-25 split, not fair. Supposedly he wanted a 50-50, which people were saying, which I'm like, if you're the challenger, I don't think you should get a 50-50 split.
60-40, I think is fair.
60-40 is fair. Yeah. But listen, Edwin De Los Santos, that's the real fight, Shantelle. Like in terms of November 16th and that being the guy instead of Frank Martin, if Frank Martin fought Edwin De Los Santos, I'd be like, okay, Frank Martin should win this fight, but I'm not sure.
I think Edwin De Los Santos would give Frank Martin a really hard time. That one loss, I think it was against William Foster, split decision. He just recently beat Joseph Adorno, right? Adorno. And people
shut him
thought
out
that,
just about.
And people thought going into that fight that Adorno was going to win. A lot of people did not take De Los Santos to win that fight in the beginning. And so I think he surprised some people. Who did you have in that fight winning?
Like going
like
into
before,
it?
like, yeah, going into it.
De Los Santos, but I thought it'd be closer than it was. And Adorno's, the Puerto Rican homie. But it was damn near. It was basically a shutout. I think one judge gave him one round, but other than that, it was a shutout.
That was surprising to me. And then he fought Jose Valenzuela, and
who was
he got
undefeated.
knocked down. He got knocked down that fight, and he ended up winning that fight was it by unanimous decision? I think it was by unanimous decision.
No, he knocked him out.
Okay.
He knocked out Valenzuela. Okay. He knocked him out early. I remember this because I was watching this fight. This was on the Andy Ruiz Luis Ortiz card.
He did knock him out. Okay.
Last September. Yeah, there was that card. God, there were so many knockouts on that card. Isaac Cruz had one in the second round that was very violent.
Was a good card.
So Jose Valenzuela was undefeated going into that fight. De Los Santos was not. And De Los Santos was dropped in round 2. He had dropped Valenzuela multiple times in that fight and knocked him out. I think that his power is going to be interesting. He's also very young. He's 23 years old. Like he's somebody who's still rounding into his body. I think he's potentially a future welterweight or a future super lightweight, maybe even a welterweight. He's 5'8" with a 70-inch reach. You could be a welterweight like that. And he's ranked as one of the best lightweights in the world. WBC has him second. BoxRec has him in the top 20. I think De Los Santos is really, really, really interesting fight for Shakur. He has knocked out all but 2 of his opponents, or 3 of his opponents if you're including the loss, but 2 of his wins are by knockout. And Shakur Stevenson is somebody who is going to, counter and do all the skillful things. And we'll see if he has trouble navigating that power. But I think in terms of Shakur Stevenson challenges, this is one of the toughest ones that he will have had to date so far.
You know what? I don't think it's a letdown fight from him not fighting Frank Martin. I think it's going to be a competitive fight and probably arguably one of his toughest fights up till now. But I do think that people are still waiting on Frank Martin to do something, to fight someone with a big name. And I think that's the bigger story from all of this. Because we know Shakur wants to smoke with anyone and everybody. But I think the biggest question is, what is next for Frank Martin if he doesn't end up fighting Tank? And if he doesn't end up fighting Shakur?
Frank Martin is going to be 29 years old in January also. That's the other thing. Like we have this perception of him as this young up and comer,
Yeah.
but he's quietly approaching 30. So this is the other part of the urgency where it's like, okay, want to see you in a big fight. And it's not even like on some disrespectful shit. It's just like, yo, you're really good. Right. So let's see you prove yourself on a big stage. So hopefully the Tank fight is actually what's I'd rather watch Tank versus Frank Martin than Tank versus Isaac Cruz too. As somebody who
Yes.
really likes Isaac Cruz, but as somebody who looked at the last fight and was like, yeah, I don't know if I want to see Isaac Cruz versus Tank 2 after that.
Yeah, let's get to some of these comments. Let's go to IMPK 13 with this one. And this is kind of an interesting one from IMPK 13. Stevenson is high risk, low reward. He is really good and currently doesn't have any belts. Martin can fight Tank. Take the same L, but make more money.
Yeah,
If
but
it's just about
he might
money,
get
but
more injured too.
you might get put out on the canvas, but Martin also has good power too. And I think everyone just wants to see Martin in a fight where he's tested.
Yes.
And against
Which
a
we
big name.
just did. We just did too. Which
Yeah.
I think makes him more appealing, right? Because he looked mostly flawless up until then. And this last fight he arguably lost. So now it's like I almost think a lot of people would be just taking Shakur Stevenson to beat him anyway, but
I mean, I would have
want to see
taken
Frank Martin in a big fight. So
Joseph, the Cabbage Patch Kid is gonna rematch Pitbull Cruz. you gotta go with some of these jokes. Thank you, Joseph, for that one. Hustle Man with a kind of good opinion on this one. 135 is starting to die down. 140 is the most stacked division right now. A lot of talent. We just need to see them mix it up. I love 140. I love the 140-pound division, and we all knew that guys were going to be moving up, but I still think there's some talent left at 135, and I still want Loma and Stevenson. Am I the only one that still wants that fight?
Well, this is interesting because we're supposedly going to get early next year, or at least it's being worked on. And I do think it's in the best interest of Top Rank to do this, Lomachenko versus George Kambosos. And I feel like we have an idea of how that's going to go with respect to George Kambosos.
Yeah.
Who could have lost his last fight to Maxie Hughes, which, glad that I had Kambosos by decision.
Some people thought Maxie Hughes got robbed in that fight.
A lot of people did.
They thought he got robbed in that fight. And personally, I was one of those people that was like, he got robbed.
I'm not going to say I agree or disagree. All I know is my bet cast. And when you're betting on boxing, people, and I tell you this, when you're betting on boxing, you have to weigh in bullshit, basically. You just have to. It's part of it. But to answer that comment, yeah, I do agree. Like lightweight probably isn't as strong as 140. I would think that 140 is one of the most stacked divisions. And I agree with Joseph. I said this. Middleweight sucks right now.
Yeah.
Middleweight like at the top. It's just not that interesting. Be honest. Like 154, 160, not that interesting right now. It just isn't. And welterweight went from being a 2-person weight class to a 1-person weight class. And we also have Boots Ennis, but we know that Boots isn't going to fight Terrence Crawford as much as he would want to, because for Terrence Crawford, he's chasing big money fights on the way out. And we know that he's going to fight Errol Spence again next.
Yeah. And then maybe he'll move up to 154. Or
168, the way that he's been talking.
Yeah, maybe him and Canelo, right? Maybe that's the dream fight that we get. But before we let's take a look at some more comments here. Hustle Man talking about 160. Big Charlo still top dog at 160 even after almost 3 years. Oh, that's the sad part, Hustle Man, that it's been like 3 years and he's still the top dog. Also, let's go back to
let's play this game, Shantelle.
Hustle Man.
Shantelle,
let me read Hustle Man's comment right here. Okay. Joette has been getting title shots. I want to see him get a title, but Lopez is going to hurt him. A very underrated fight.
So that's this weekend for people who aren't following this closely enough. Mexican Independence Day weekend. ESPN has a card Friday night.
I love Friday night fights. I wish they did it more.
God, yes.
I wish they did it more, especially when there's like a big UFC card on a Saturday. Do it on Friday.
Yes.
Like, I love the Friday night fights.
Luis Venado Lopez is defending his title, his IBF featherweight title, against Joette Gonzalez. I actually did a preview for this on Action Network. It's a 3-minute video picking the fight and doing some analysis, so you should go check that out. and that fight is going to be interesting. Also, Xander Zayas co-feature, so I'm going to be watching for that. But it's a fun card. It's Mexican Independence Day weekend. That's going to be a war, and I'm not giving you my pick because I want you to watch the Action Network video.
So before we get up out of here, you were going to ask me a question.
Who do you think, according to BoxRec, is the #1 middleweight in the world right now?
I'm going to be able to tell you. It's such a trash division. Who do they have?
Gennady Golovkin. Still.
Wow. Yeah.
And he vacated multiple titles.
That's what I was going to say. I would never pick Triple G because he vacated his titles. But his last fight, the way he went out, yeah, I need to see Triple G in one nice fight before he retires. What's up?
Chris Eubank Jr. is #2. Liam Smith, who Chris Eubank Jr. just outboxed, is #3.
I still want to see Chris Eubank and Conor Benn.
Carlos Adames is 5th. Michael Zarafa is 6th.
I don't want to talk about this division anymore.
And Johnny Beck is 7th, your boy.
Oh, okay. A lot of people have hype on him.
I think you would put him first.
I would. Yeah.
I think you'd put him first right now.
I don't know, actually. I don't know if I would.
I don't love this division at all. Ammo Williams is in the top 10. I think he has a fight coming up. Yeah, right. He's fighting your boy, Steve Rolls, end of the month.
September 23rd. Nice. Steve Rolls, Canadian. We know Steve Rolls is set up to fail in that one. But hey, listen, he put on a show against Edgar Berlanga, remember? Berlanga was supposed to get up out of there. Okay, so before we get up out of here, and if you're in the comments, you can drop this as well. Who do you want to see fight? Possibly, it's not going to happen before the end of the year. There's like 2 months left. Let's be serious here. There could be a fight scheduled. I highly doubt it. But who do you want to see fight before, let's say next May? That's enough time. Who do you want to see in the ring?
We could do it before the end of the year because if you could still squeeze in a fight in like December.
You could, but I just don't see it happening. Okay, let's just say February. Like that's like a good amount of time where a fight can be made.
All right. What's the question exactly? Which
fight?
My goodness. What's the fight I want to see the most between?
No, what fighter do you want to see fight before February?
I would like to see Dimitri Bivol fight again. I just don't know who it's going to be against.
Yeah,
but he hasn't been active after. We're talking about him for Fighter of the Year last year because the way he beat Canelo Alvarez and then. Ramirez. So, yeah, I would like to see Dimitri Bivol again before the end of the year, but who's he going to be fighting against if that's the case?
Okay, Dimitri Bivol's a good one. I want to see Danny Garcia because wasn't Danny Garcia supposed to fight Erislandy Lara, and that fight never went down
at Barclays Center here.
Danny Garcia moved up in weight class, had a pretty good fight in his first fight at 154 pounds. And a lot of people were saying that he was going to be too small for that division. I still want to know. I still want to see more. And we haven't seen Danny Garcia in a minute. And it's like, are we going to see him before February? That's all I want to know. Let's get to some final comments before we get up out of here. Let's go over to Sherm Show. Thanks so much for rocking with us, by the way. I want to see how Ryan Garcia looks with Derek James. I do too. I do too. And so far, I like all the stuff they're posting on social. Ryan Garcia looks more motivated than ever. There was a rumor that Oscar De La Hoya and Ryan Garcia were working on a fight against someone. I forgot who the name was. I think Michael Benson might have tweeted it a little earlier this week.
There's been multiple names. I think whoever he fights is going to just be a huge fight because everyone, to Sherb Show's point, thank you for that comment, is going to have that same curiosity that we're going to have here. Like I'm telling you, whoever he fights, that's probably a fight party fight. And that's probably a fight that if we could sort of make it work, then we might want to do a live on that because Ryan Garcia is one of those dudes. And I think he is capable of and motivated to come back from that Gervonta Davis loss. He's not somebody I'm writing off after one loss. You know what I mean? So
no, not at all. And the fact that he took that fight in his prime, shows that he's with it. And then he goes and teams up with Derek James. So a lot of people were talking about how Ryan Garcia was only in it for a little while and then he was going to peace out because he might do that. But I just think that he's serious.
He pushed for that fight too. Calvin Ford said it. He basically made that fight because he kept saying he wanted it. Tank is just too high of a level for him right now, and that's fine. It's totally fine. All of our favorite fighters have losses. You say it all the time.
Yeah, it's true. All right. Well, thank you so much for rocking with us on this Thursday morning or afternoon, depending on what coast you're on. We appreciate you. If you like the content, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Follow us on our social media channels at the Mandatory TKO. Also, keep in mind, we are going to be doing a live show for Canelo and Charlo later this month. Bryan's in the midst of moving.
Yeah.
And I know that's like moving week for you because it's at the end of the month, but we are going to do that for you guys. So just telling you guys right now, make sure to join us for the post-fight show as well. And any final thoughts, Bryan, before we get up out of here?
This week's card is very, very good. And you should watch it. We're not doing a betting segment on it because there are some massive favorites on it. We just don't really have the time to do it. But next week we will. Richardson Hitchens versus Jose Zepeda.
It's a great fight.
It's a fantastic fight. And then obviously Canelo Alvarez and Jermell Charlo after that. So we do have some betting stuff coming up. We do have some more shows coming up. We will be back next week with some more content.